Um, this is for a cause mic is open now. An open stereo receiver and transmitter. Neurons, God's messengers. Eternal love vibration, eternal spirit on fire. So, I know that Kunjoy, who's she's precious to me. To experience what we did with Sparky, she asked me to name the dog, which was an abandoned dog who's been through a lot of trauma, right? And so, when you're connected, your heart is connected through Mama, right, to her software and the dog, right? We did this together, right? Because I know that a lot of you know how this works. It is a form of channel when you realize your chakras are with Mama's chakras. So you got a relationship with Mama, right? So it's like sometimes I have fun, like, come on, Mama, send this to her. She will. She'll get the message through. She'll get the message through to another heart and soul. Mama does. So that's who I work with. That's who I work for. I work for a goddess. You better believe I do. I'll get down and mop her floors, wax her car, whatever she wants done so she feels elevated. So the higher octave, right, of the cosmos is elevated, right? So there are a lot of things I've done throughout my life to maintain the spirit of fire, right? So you know how that works with phosphorus, all the elements, right? And so that's a really hot element to light, isn't it? So I know, having been a firefighter, right? And anybody that has knows that before you leave that fire, when you've put it out with water, that you don't want to come back there again, right? Which means you want to do it right the first time. That's what love is. Love doesn't make any errors. So you know that you can find the point of origin of that fire, right? Every wildland firefighter that I ever work with knows how to find the exact point of origin. And you want to know how that is? It's called a map read. It's a map read of the waves. You're taking a picture of it. And so you're looking at the sound and light patterns to know where the exact center point of creation is. Because that's what I experience, what I am, which is being one. That's the center point of origin, which is the center point of the hottest blast furnace. So that's when gender disappears, because we're simply talking about an eternal love vibration. One big-ass love vibration. So that everybody in the universe that is alive and living in spirit is experiencing that vibration. Because you can't ever put that fire out. That's real living light. Okay? So, one of the things that Asha Diane talked about, because I just got done this morning, I look at little pieces or segments of stuff that she shares. So I have a common, if you will, common experiences. Experience is the teacher. Because experience is what we're experiencing in our mirror, the result in the use of our energy, right? So she talked about like being ambassadors and about how we differentiate like a torque speed differential. And the way I've always shared how I experience being what I am in energy. And this really is energy identification between mirrors, right? When you're in a fallen system, you know, what a black mirror is, what finite light is, a finite light mirror. So how do you know the difference between finite and eternal living light? Was eternal living love. So we celebrate life with love, and that's a dance for joy. So we're in a state of joy, a state of love and joy. I woke up every morning as a little kid, and I was always in a state of love and joy, day in and day out. So that they couldn't put that fire out in that little kid. Right? Plug into that little boy, right? See, but I'm not a boy, per se, okay? The seed and the flower grow together. The sound and the light grow together. They're one. That's a marriage. I call it a match made in heaven. So you know that I was born out of heaven. I was born out of God's star. The first cosmic level star that you can't ever put that fire out. That's where I'm from. I was born out of that star. A cosmic level star that goes on forever. Gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. So that there isn't anything that is aware of itself is ever not experiencing what God is, what love is. So that's like wanting to heal the entire universe as if no trauma was ever experienced from the end of day one. Right? So a lot of things that I do that I've found, so she mentioned, because I wrote some things down here that I share with others, particularly to Kunjoy, why I send her different little bits and pieces. And so I wrote this down, like the ability for an eternal spirit on fire to feel everything. And that's what it's always been like for me since I was a child. I feel everything. Right? So that means as a polarity integrator to bring everything back into experiencing one. Right? The one blast, for instance, goes on forever, gifting love. Right? You can see from the little kid's point of view how much would have to be healed because we're experiencing it because we feel it. You know, just like I mentioned when I asked Mama, I want to feel it. I want to heal it all. I want to feel it all. So I was able to feel it all. My sensors were fully out. It's like having sensors in the entire universe. You know, the multiverse. You know, the line connections, the lines of communication that are all open to you. Right? So in other words, God's everywhere. There isn't anywhere that God isn't. Okay? Otherwise, you can't speak to God. Eternity. So now you see what happens. Right? So I wrote down a couple of things, I guess, that she mentioned. Obviously, balance is the simplest part of it because so much of when you think of polarity, the minus / the plus, and how the RH factor comes into that, right, between bloodlines and how atoms work, you know, with electron, protons, and neutrons, or units of energy that are aware of what it's aware of. Well, what is it aware of? It's aware of what love is. Okay. That energy is experiencing what love is, which is what light is. It goes on forever. So it's experiencing forever. So it's experiencing forever being loved. So that's everything. That's when you get into shattered crystals, right? A piece of it, a shard of that crystal got broken off, that fractal, and it went dark mirror or black mirror. It's not experiencing love anymore. Lost in space, right? And so she talked about you know, if you were when you were a child like I was already aware I was on a spiritual battlefield translating the math, the geometry, because it's like being compressed, the density, you know, and that's what it is between a resistor and a capacitor, if you will, on a star network, a planetary grid, right? So you realize something's fucked up with the grids. Otherwise, I'm supposed to experience love in all lines of communication. When you're an open receiver, right, experiencing an eternal love through your own heart. So that's a cosmic level stereo receiver where you're frequency modulating all the lines of communication that represent frequencies so that we're all in balance through all the lines of communication through hub servers, right? So, so what I did when I was small, and this helped me, was I don't assign blame. Remember, I always talked about there's what you experience, what I experience. I'm not what you are what you are. Okay, so you're free to go. See, so love is always going to allow energy to be free to go, which means love doesn't hold energy captive. So what that means is you're a student in the universe. You're learning just like I am. So you're learning as you go. So you're choosing a pathway to learn from, right? So that's how it works, right? The pathway, which is the form and the flow of the energy that you're choosing to hang out with and learn from. So that's why I always said she's my first musician. I'm other guy. The first musician was my first music teacher. That's what love is. Love is music. Dancing in spirit. Go with the flow. So the flow has a natural way in which it uses that energy, which is what love is, it goes on forever, to manifest what it's thus experiencing. So the math automatically works because that state of consciousness is in perfect balance with the geometry, which would be the math. So that means that template is not experiencing anything less than what love is, wherever it goes. Imagine that. So that would be like a God template, a goddess template, a God and a goddess that are joined as one. The single point of origin, the first blast furnace, right? A cosmic level receiver, a cosmic level spirit. It's got to be a spirit of fire in that, right? Which means you need a lot of coolant. Slow the motor down. Frequency modulate. You don't want to burn everything up, right? You just be one spontaneous combustible unit everywhere you go. Cooling yourself down, lighting yourself on fire, cooling yourself down, lighting yourself on fire. Right. So the importance that I got out of what I listened to this morning, a couple of things was healing methods, if you will, and particularly because of some of the things that I do. And I mentioned my clan mother, and I keep a neutral position on this, okay? Because your free will is your free will to do what you do with the energy that is represented by your consciousness. So if you're fooling around with using laptops and stuff like she uses in which to heal, I'm also very cognizant of the fact that those technologies run through finite light and not eternal living light because they can't process that way. There's no way you could process everything that's happening in the entire multiverse through one laptop. Okay? So now we're back to libraries, simultaneous libraries. Now we're talking about all the records, the crystal records, right? And so she made a comment about that because it's all of a sudden, hey, I mentioned that kind of stuff to my clan mother, Karen Ann Luke McDonald. You know, that she's using deadlight technologies to heal others. And so Asha Diane made a mention of this in the one that she did about Living Lotus in the Emerald Covenant, where she talked about the ability to know the difference between deadlight technology and living crystal light technology, where you're experiencing living spirit and living light that's connected to the primal sound and light field. Because because I do this because I have to log in and out of here all the time, right? Remember I mentioned the other day about how I'm logged in and subscribed under the channel that's under the one that I set up, right? And then I popped up another application that really is the same application, but it's in a different location. So now I'm going to pop it up from that point. So that would be like YouTube's already running. I'm subscribed, right? So that's allowing me to subscribe. That means the system, the finite system, is allowing me to log in. So I'm logged in and subscribed. That means anything that I want to subscribe to, that action, the intention to do that will occur. Now that's confirmation that it did what I wanted it to do, okay, by virtue of my free will ability to do that. And then I go to a different window and on a link to go see what was up there. And then I thought, okay, I'll subscribe to that. I had to log in again, okay, in order to do that, even though I got another window that's open in which I'm already subscribed. So I went back there and I go, I get it. See, and so where this comes into libraries and finite light technology versus eternal living light, they don't work that way, do they? It's impossible because you can't compress that much energy into a laptop or, imagine it here, right? That's eternal energy. That's what it means about, right? You're just a spontaneous combustion wherever you go. You're just, all anybody would ever see of you is just a big hot flame walking around, right? Of light, a pillar of light. And that's really what it is to anchor to the magnetosphere and become a pillar of light. Remember? The rod and staff landed, anchored to the planetary magnetosphere, right? To hold the poles in balance, right? Because that's what a polarity integrator can do. That's what androgens is. That's why that is an eternal gift. It's an eternal blessing. You're always with God because your energy is perfectly balanced. That means there are no turbulent waters going on. That means you're experiencing calm, just like the calm blue waters of the Pacific. So that means you're tuned in. Good job, right? So you know how to tune an antenna, which means you know how to tune music, right? Absolutely. So you're a musician, a natural musician, and that's what makes it so beautiful to be healed and to heal others by what we're connected with, where it just happens. It's automatic. As a matter of fact, it's not even technology. Okay? Yellow Rose was right about that. Never needed technology. See what I'm saying? Because most of the places that I've been as a result of what I've been exposed to, like Al Shaddai talked about being a transmutation machine, I didn't have that luxury of having a Genius app or any of these new terahertz wands and stuff like that. And I didn't have a chemistry set with me other than one that I know how to run. By being imbalanced, right? So you know how to balance all your molecules, communicating with all the elementals, everything that at the molecular level is experiencing what you are, a molecule, a monad, so a monopole. That's single candle power, right? So there isn't any polarity games going on, right? So it's not one side or the other playing ping pong. You give love to all. Right, so now experience what you experience, or everything else that's being experienced that's in my mirror. So when everything else that's in your mirror is experiencing what love is, which goes on forever, then you know that you've restored everything that needed to be restored. Because now you're experiencing in them what love is that we experience in us. And that's how a simple 4-year-old little boy would explain that to others. I'm not going to hold your energy captive. You're free to go. I don't put anything in a cage. Okay, so you can see how that was for me being at 4 years of age. Letting all the animals out of all the zoos. Letting everybody on the planet be free. To fly as a bird, born free. That's right, love is born free, and that's a free spirit. That's an eternal spirit. That means you can't hold God's consciousness captive. Okay? There's no Lucian collar or cages on God. The one true God, which is the law of one. The single point from which it all came. So and that makes it obvious. So we're back to the vampire chasing the artist, the first musician. Okay? That's like they're in a track meet, right? Trying to keep up with God. And in order to be what that is, that means you've got to give up every single electron. And that means you're in service forever. So that there's no, how do I put this? That's why I lit myself on fire. Given what was going on in 2016, it's the reason that I did that is so that when she talked about identity functions, and I've covered identity functions, there has to be no question within your own heart and soul who you are. If you question yourself, then you don't know who you are, do you? It means you lost your memory. And that means that the line communication of the primal sound and light field somewhere got cut. Or it's been, the lines of communication are garbled. You're not getting what they call a throughput. Throughput, in computer terminology, throughput. Filtering content. Right? The visual mathematical content of what is represented by that hologram. Is it in perfect balance? Are they experiencing what love is? Right? So that all the lines of communication are fully open. Right? That means the gates are all open. That means every line of communication between everything in that universal template is experiencing what love is. That's how God designs things. Right? No errors. None. So that's the same thing as a minus / a plus becomes 0. There's no polarity. It's gone. Now you're one with all creation, gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. So everybody's getting enough juice. Like in jewels. The crown jewels, but the crown chakra. A flower on the top of our head. Like Kuna Flash, thank you so much for what you put up the other day, bro. Thank you. You know, the language of love. That's what it is. Yep. Mua. Aloha. Aloha. The language is just, it's second nature to you, but it's really first nature. Because it's a vibrational frequency match. You know, there is no distortions in the music and the sound and light patterns of the geometry. It's a perfect fit. Right? And that's beautiful language to sing and dance to, particularly with a campfire on the beach with real flower crowns on top of your head. Right? Celebrating life, celebrating the universe that we give love to. Because that's what it began with. So everybody's experiencing the one grand central station, the grand creator. So some of the things that I share with other folks about some of the things that I've done throughout my life ever since I was a little kid, because one of the things that she mentioned, which was important, was when you're like already awake, you're already aware of that, and we talk about experiences. So I think I shared some things on that before about I'm not supposed to experience anything less than what love is. So I have to account for why, if I'm experiencing eternal unconditional love, why I'm experiencing someone else that's not experiencing what I am. Because you feel everything. Because you're everything they are. And if you're not experiencing love, then I'm not experiencing love. What happened? So that means when you have an open mic, anything is possible. So all the experiences become those variables between the minus / the plus. Because now we're back to degrees or tolerance of mistakes in the math and geometry that don't work. Because you're not experiencing perfect balance and experiencing God's love. God's math, the lines of communication. Right? And so other folks use different words to describe what I call triggers. At the end of the day, at the completion of a magnetic circuit, what does it feel like? So you got the word machine or the thought machine, and then you have the feeling, what you feel in your heart and soul, what you know to be true. What we know to be true is what I know that I am, and I am what love is. It goes on forever, gifting electrons and love energy forever in all ways in which I can do it, being creatively on fire, and that just happens. Because now that fire is lit, and when that's lit and burning as hot as it can be, and you're in creative mode, and some girl wants to know how creative you actually are to show her how much you love her, believe it or not, that actually increases the intensity of the fire. And that is particularly true if you're willing to show her, if she's not ever experienced it before, but you already know that she hasn't, because you can map read the record and know that she hasn't. And that increases the intensity of that creative love even more, because now you really want to show her, because you realize she hasn't experienced something on that level yet, because you're able to map the level at which she operates because of the resistance. As I've said this a gazillion times, your antenna, my antenna, is reading the resistance. So you realize between pre-matter phase, right, and matter phase, there isn't any resistance because you're not experiencing any density, right? Yeah, so somebody's knocking on my door, so I'll be right back.